Martial Law with Marshall Chriswell, and this radio program intended to be for informational purposes only. The information does not constitute legal advice. The law is constantly changing, and the information may not be complete or correct depending on the date and your particular legal problem. Each legal problem depends on its individual facts, and different jurisdictions have different laws and regulations. Because of that, you should not act or rely on any information in this segment without seeking the advice of a competent attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction for your particular problem. And let's say good morning and Happy New Year to Marshall Chriswell.
Good morning.
It's good to have you with us here today. Hey, let's talk a little bit about some pressing issues. And I don't know that this has anything to do with it's a new year, so therefore you should file for your divorce now. But let's visit that topic a little bit. It's not one that we visit very often, but divorce is an unfortunate aspect of life in this day and age, and it always has been. So let's discuss that. And maybe get into the nuts and bolts of it. What are some of the things, the considerations that we need to take account from a legal standpoint when divorce is on the table?
Sure. So I guess a good place to start is, the first question that a lot of clients have when they come in and are talking about, potentially filing for divorce is just how to get the process started, right? Just procedurally, what do you have to do? Mm-hmm. The first thing that you need to do to initiate a divorce case is to file what's called a complaint in divorce. And the form of that complaint is going to vary a little bit sometimes depending on whether this divorce is totally uncontested or whether we believe there's going to be a dispute over it, whether there is marital property and marital assets and debts which are going to be on the table for division. That's got to be specifically stated in the divorce complaint that you're seeking equitable distribution of marital property. If the party that's filing the complaint is seeking spousal support, alimony, reimbursement of counsel fees, and other relief related to the divorce action, then you've got to state those things in the complaint. And so you get all that together and you get it filed, and that's what it opens the divorce case, gets it started, and also gets the clock ticking on various time frames that are relevant for the completion of the divorce action.
You and I, when we talk on other topics, you are very big on that first initial meeting and not getting too much into the details and coming with a big bucket full or case full of documents or anything like that. I would assume that's the case here, too, that it's let's open the discussion and see where we are type of thing first, right?
Yeah, and I totally agree with that, Todd. What some folks do is, they will even meet with a lawyer if, even before they're entirely sure of what's happening in their situation with respect to divorce, and just get an idea, okay, what are my rights here? What sort of information will I need to have in the event that I'm going to move forward with the divorce action? What steps should I take to protect myself, protect my share of the marital assets, to ensure that my children are protected, all of those things. So I do find that folks that are considering divorce sometimes will take that, what I think is a very smart step of just a brief consultation with an attorney to say, okay, hey, what should I be looking out for?
Mm-hmm. There are a number of terms that we hear all the time in the movies and on TV, and probably we would do best to get a good grip on some of them. For instance, the term no-fault divorce, the term alimony, which you hear about a lot, but maybe you don't understand. So let's start with a couple of the terms that you think people really need to understand.
Sure. So no-fault divorce, that's a good place to start. Up until the divorce law was amended in Pennsylvania in 1980, there really was no such thing as a no-fault divorce. You couldn't get a divorce unless you could allege and meet one of the fault grounds. So fault grounds were, for example, had your spouse abandoned you, had your spouse abused you, had your spouse submitted you to indignities, have they made your life so miserable that it would be impossible to go on being married to them, has your spouse become insane or been institutionalized. Those were reasons to get a divorce. Other than that, you were out of luck. So what happened was you had a whole lot of folks going into court, and they would get on the stand, and both spouses would lie and say, there are fault grounds here, when really there weren't, because people just wanted to get divorced. Mm-hmm. So in 1980, that law was amended, and now 99% of all the divorces that are filed in Pennsylvania are of the no-fault variety, which means that nobody's admitting anybody did anything wrong, and you don't. Nobody had to have done anything wrong for you to obtain a divorce, as long as you go through the procedure and the requisite waiting periods, and you either reach an agreement on the disputed issues or a court issues an order. Yes, you can get divorced.
All right. Some of the other terms: alimony and child support.
Alimony are payments, periodic payments that are made to the economically disadvantaged spouse after the divorce is over. So the divorce goes through the process, which can take anywhere from 90 days to a few years, and you finally get that divorce decree. The divorce is over, and there's an order for the spouse with a greater earning capacity, has more money to pay the other spouse, a monthly or quarterly or whatever periodic payment to support them for a period of time. And sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's 5 years, sometimes it's the rest of their life, depending on the circumstance. So alimony is, although it's a popular idea and a lot of people talk about it, it's not all that common, really, in the grand scheme of things. Not totally uncommon, but it's not every case that alimony is awarded. What people should know, and people that are thinking about potentially separating from their spouse, even if you're not going to file for divorce, if you're just thinking about separating from your spouse, if you are the economically disadvantaged spouse, you are entitled immediately to spousal support. Okay. You can go the day that you separate from your spouse, even if you haven't filed for divorce, and go and file for spousal support. So it's something that, unfortunately, not a lot of people know, and it keeps people sometimes in very bad situations, even abusive situations, because they think that financially they're not going to be able to separate from their spouse. You're always entitled to spousal support.
So there is a difference between alimony and spousal support. Now, child support's an entirely different and very complicated issue, isn't it?
It is, and there is a little bit of an idea people have that child support's a very simple issue, and that it's just based on your income and things. And a lot of times people will go through that process and try to fight that without an attorney because they believe it is just a simple formulaic calculation. Child support can become very complicated. Because a lot of times you're not dealing with just what the parties' incomes are now. You're dealing with what the parties' earning capacities are. Pennsylvania says that you pay child support on your earning capacity, not necessarily what you actually earn. So that gets into all sorts of complicated arguments. And sometimes testimony from vocational experts saying, hey, somebody with this level of education, with a master's degree in education, should be able to be a teacher and make this much money in the area that they live, and that's what they should pay support on. So that's just one example, but those are the types of arguments you get into. So child support, is something that's a little bit more than meets the eye.
So these are all discussion points for when you do meet with an attorney, and divorce is one of those considerations that you're taking, and you'll guide them through this entire process and discuss whatever the issues are that they have before them. But I think probably the thing that we do not give enough credence to is the fact that this is a very, very emotional time, and it can become a very emotional proceeding. when attorneys get together to talk about divorce with each other, and these two spouses are involved. It can be a very, very painful process, right?
It's extremely emotional. Every divorce case is extremely emotional, and the most difficult time, obviously, is when right at the beginning there, the outset, when that separation is occurring, and it's so crucial that the divorce procedure is done in the correct way, and that seeking out an attorney is something that really. Yeah, I'm going to explain the law to you. I'm going to guide you through the legal process and work towards the best resolution in your case. But I'm also someone that that you're going to be able to talk to about these issues in the context of the divorce case. So, and the attorneys then are able to converse with one another and reach agreements on issues, assist the parties to reach agreements on issues that otherwise you'd never be able to, with the emotions that are they're generally so high in these cases. The attorneys, obviously, that we're trained to take the emotion out of it.
Yeah, and that's a good way to put it too, because if you leave it to the husband and wife who are in the midst of this, emotion is just going to rule the day, and that's where the attorney steps in and is the voice of, emotionless, factual presentations, and however it is that those discussions unfold. So for those folks who do consider divorce on the table, I thought it was interesting earlier you mentioned that maybe people who are thinking about divorce might want to consult before they ever make any decision. I think that's a very interesting approach. So what do you recommend that somebody who is in that stage, what do they do?
If you're interested in a consultation, you can call my office or send me an email through my website. And one of the key things a lot of times in divorce is, let us know, and we'll ask this both on the website. We ask this, and when someone answers the phone here, we're going to ask what's the best way for us to contact you back, because that's what so many people are worried. If I contact an attorney and then they're going to call back to my house, or they're going to email back on a joint email account, my spouse is going to see this. This is going to cause way more problems than I have already. So we can be discreet in that way. But yeah, you reach out in one of those two ways.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good idea. And speaking of the website, it's probably a good time to give a boost to that website, because it's not just divorce we're talking about. When people want to go to your website, what are they going to find?
Right. So if you go to westernpalawyer.com, you're going to find all the different practice areas that I handle. So in addition to family law issues, as we've discussed, I do a whole lot of estate planning and probate work, as well as real estate transactions and business transactions. And I try to keep that website updated with some of the current considerations in each of those areas, and gives folks an idea of just a basic understanding of what we do in those areas of law.
WesternPALawyer.com?
That's right, www.westernpalawyer.com.
Very good. And if someone wants to call the office, what do they need to do there?
The number is 724-465-5826, and you can always stop by and see us in the R&P Cole Building, which is at 655 Church Street here in Indiana.
And he is Marshall Chriswell. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good week, Todd.
You too. We'll see you. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, 101.1 FM and AM 1160. FM and AM 1160. FM and